The one area I'd like to speak about today is how to reach your best at a really important race. For example, let's say you're training for one of your biggest races. It could be, provincial championships. It could be your country championships, or it could be, even training for a world championships. The one thing that really made a difference in my training was approaching every single race as though it's the most important race. My previous attitude was training for my one major race, which would be in April. I would gear my whole training season for that race. I wouldn't taper for my races in November. I wouldn't taper for my races in December, and I'd always make excuses in my mind that things would get better in April. And over a 10-year period, I realized that things normally don't happen on the day unless you train for them and prepare for those small races in the way that you would want to prepare for the major race. So what do I mean by that? Well, when you've got your smaller races, for example, that are happening in the early season, you've got to approach them as though that is your main race, as though that's your Olympics in your sport, as though it's world championships. By doing that, what you are doing is you're training your mind to learn how to win. And this takes practice. It takes years of practice. And what it teaches you to do is that when you go into a race, it teaches you to have a no excuses, no nonsense attitude. So it took me about 6-7 years to realize that in the peak of my career. And after I realized that I need to approach the pre-season races as though it's my world championships or country championships or the Olympics of my sport, it made such a difference, because I would taper for perhaps 4 or 5 races prior to that main race, and those 4 or 5 races would become my world championships. And then I had no excuses. If I did badly, I needed to rectify it. If I had a bad attitude, I'd have to rectify it on the day. So this one key point which has changed my racing was approach every single race that you do as though it's the most important race. And by doing that, you'll learn to fight more in the race, you'll learn to be more hungry, and it'll change the way you think about sport. Because a lot of people around the world who perhaps haven't had the exposure of racing at an elite level will not realize the importance of that fight and that mental attitude that can really take you to the next level. So, what tips can I provide to you that will make a difference? The next race that you do, taper more for it, eat properly, meaning carb load, or have your high protein, have a mixture, and prepare as though it's your most important race. And that way you'll start to learn about yourself, you'll start to learn about your weaknesses, and you'll start to learn about your mistakes. And at the end of the year, if that major race doesn't come off, at least you would have built your reputation, you would have built your confidence that you can do well sometimes through the year, and it'll start to shape you as an athlete and as an individual. If you've got any questions, post them below. I'm always willing to help and answer your questions. I hope this tip and perspective on sports has shaped what you're going to do in the future.